everybody. Thanks for joining us again for another episode of Checking In with the Chamber. And I am with Margo. Margo is the owner of CKM Services. And right off the bat, Margo, what's CKM stand for?
CKM stands for Clean Up Your Numbers, Know Where You Stand, and Manage Your Process. I'm a QuickBooks Pro Advisor and a OneNote trainer.
I love that. And I will tell you, she is a pro because I constantly email her about silly questions. Like right now, I'm printing bulk invoices for QuickBooks. And I started at like midnight last night, so I did have to Google the question. So I didn't bother you with it, but you are definitely a pro. Are you an accountant?
I am not an accountant.
Okay.
I majored in accounting, and I grew up in a family business on a farm on Music Street. So I've been in the area all my life. We had a bunch of engineers in the family, and my dad had a business of custom industrial controls, and everyone was an engineer, and someone had to do the books, and they suggested I go into accounting, and that's how that happened.
And that's how it used to be.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, like families would figure out what they needed. I know our family always talked about, we had a lawyer, we had a dentist, but we were upset that we didn't guide anyone into the medical field.
Yeah. So Dad did some very cool projects, and one day in 1985, he used to call on little companies like Procter & Gamble and Hewlett Packard and Alcoa.
Little ones.
One day his pricing philosophy was find out how much it was going to cost you and add a zero. So we got $1 million order from Procter & Gamble. And I quit my job and went to work for Dad. And we rented an industrial park, and we had to do all the purchasing and had to set up payroll and set up the accounting system. And I learned a lot, and I take that with me in all the small businesses that I deal with now, because I get it, that moment when, oh my God, we got an order and we are not scaled or ready to handle that kind of a volume.
And I'm sure there were a lot of that going on during COVID, of folks that, had gloves sitting on their shelves for the last 5 years, and then all of a sudden they're the most important person in the world. Right. And you are hired to not only bring your professionalism with your QuickBooks and your knowledge, but you want to go into small businesses who have receipts in shoe boxes. Their things are in the desk, nothing is organized, and you go in and you don't clean, let's be perfectly clear, but you go in and you clean house when it comes to their financials. You're a genius when it comes to that. And I said that, so whether you agree or not, you are. You take a business who is probably losing money out the window and not even knowing it, to turning it around and being profitable. How do you do that?
Everyone asks me that. I don't know how I do it. I got started by accident. I used to be a 4-H advisor, and one of my kids had a business, and his mom said, "Oh, he needs some help." And she said, "You could help him. You majored in accounting." And I went in and I got a tour of the business, and we came around, he had an inventory, and came around to the front, and there was the cash register. And I said, "So how do you manage your cash?" And he said, "Well, when the drawer gets full, I take a wad out and I take it to the bank." And I said, "So how do you know all your employees aren't helping you keep the drawer closed?" And he looked at me like, "What?" And I started the next morning. I was there at 6 a.m. I would, balance the drawer with $100 in it. And 2 employees quit within 2 weeks because they were no longer making what they used to make.
They maybe had sticky fingers.
Yeah. And that was the first one. The next client, they had an accounts payable process that was taking them 4 days every 2 weeks, and I got it down to about 3 hours. So I just kind of look at processes. I'm referred by accounting firms to existing companies that might need some help. And it might not be small businesses. It could be anything. I did executive caterers in 2014, I think. And they were on a 20-year-old accounting package. And I was called in by the accounting firm at Thanksgiving wanting to convert a $20 million company to QuickBooks by the 1st of January. And I'm a company of one. So we did it, and it was quite exciting. And I just had dinner with them last night. So yeah,
I hope they paid.
They're still great friends.
And wrote it off on the QuickBooks.
They're suffering from the virus just like
everyone else.
That is true. They can't have anything. So so I have now done 140 companies in 12 years. So my purpose is kind of to work myself out of a job. So I come in, look at whatever it is. I think my biggest challenge was in 2010. I met a guy who I used to work with, and I saw him at the ice cream place, the
Civics.
Yes. And he was getting out of a van with his children or his grandchildren. And I said, Don, how are you doing? And he said, oh, it's so good to see you. What are you doing? And I told him, and he said, my son needs your help. And so the son calls me and he said, well, I'm a little disorganized, but I'm going to get organized. And I said, well, that's not how I roll. My daughter calls me the Navy SEAL of business, and I just drop in, do whatever has to be done, and then train the wife, the mother, the brother-in-law, whoever, to do what is supposed to be done so that they can, make a profit and have a process. And he said, well, I'll call you after 4th of July. And I didn't hear from him. And on a Sunday night, the dad called and I said, oh, I talked to your son, but I haven't heard from him. And he said, you aren't going to. He died of a heart attack. We found him dead this morning. He said, can you come?
Oh my gosh.
And I canceled my next day, and I came in. The computer hacker was trying to get into the system. The shell-shocked dad is going to lose his house. The business, the house has the line of credit. 4 credit cards maxed. Payroll had bounced. 2 crews looking at what to do. The hacker got into the system. They gave me the keys to the building, and they left for the funeral home.
Oh, wow.
So that one was a real challenge. And the biggest compliment I've ever gotten in my life was 6 months later when the owner said, Margo, the only thing that kept me from falling apart this whole time was that you never asked, what should I do next? He goes, if you would have asked me that, I would have completely lost it. And I say to my clients now, I can run your business without you. I wouldn't suggest it. It didn't work well for that guy, but,
right.
Let's pull everybody off the ceiling first. Let's get you to know who are your customers, which ones you should have and shouldn't have. Are you making a profit? Do you know your costs? Do you know your numbers? Are you waiting for an accountant right now to tell you how you did in 2019? That is too late. You need to know now. You need to know daily how you are doing. And there is a way to do that without too much agony.
Mm-hmm.
People didn't go into business to do that. People went into business to do their business, not to run it or run the accounting part, and they're afraid of it. And so there really isn't a need to be afraid of it.
What's the biggest mistake that people make when it comes to anything keeping their books in order?
So if you're not organized, or it depends on how QuickBooks is set up. Most people use QuickBooks maybe 10% of its capability. It has so much capability and reporting, Mm-hmm. And usually an accountant set it up, and the accountant sets it up so that they can get what they need to do your taxes. And so nobody really uses it because it isn't what the owner needs to run his business. So when I go in, I can say, like a case in point, I went to a client and he had a yellow legal pad paper with register tape taped to it with all these numbers. And I said, what is that? And he said, that's how I keep track of all my distributors in other states. And I said, QuickBooks could do that for you in about 30 seconds. And I went off, made the report, and I showed it and put it in his favorites, and he could press it every 5 minutes if he wanted to see how it was all going. But I've been called by accounting firms to come in. Like I filled in for a girl going on maternity leave. So I did her job for 3 months. And when she came back, I went into the owner and said, I don't have to train her on her job. She already knows her job. And he said, you've asked so many questions that we've never even thought of. We'd like you to stay on indefinitely. And I was there for 8 months and completely changed their inventory system. And so I find that most people, back to your question, most people don't even know what is wrong. People don't know what they don't know.
Right,
So
because
they
they're
don't
so
know.
busy working their
Yes.
business.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I go in and say, okay, what's the process? What's happening here? Who's all doing what? And sometimes you find out the wrong people are in the wrong jobs. Sometimes you think you're making money on a certain product, and when you really get into the numbers, you're losing your shirt on that product, but you didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
So there's analysis and discussions, and yes, it takes some work. And the talk that we did together when COVID first started, I said to business owners, you have some time right now to change these bad habits and get in a position where you will be able to thrive when all this opens up again.
And you need to be able to continue.
Yes.
You're going to come in, you're going to make it right. But if that business owner is not doing it after you leave, then it's going to go back to what it was.
Correct. So I try to make it as simple as possible, explain to them, if people say, oh, I don't know what they kind of know what the profit and loss is, but a balance sheet, they don't, it's a scary word. And a balance sheet is just a list of what you own and what you owe. And when I show people their balance sheet of how it prints out of QuickBooks, and I say, do you really owe all these? No, those are old loans and they all have balances on them. And one guy said, is this why I didn't qualify for the loan for my house? And I said, that would be it.
Oh my gosh.
Because banks and accountants depend on this information. They're not going to go through it with you. Or they just take what you give them. Mm-hmm. So if you don't even realize what you're giving them, you're shooting yourself in the foot.
And I would think you'd have to be in high demand because there really aren't a lot of other programs like QuickBooks, which is surprising in this world that that they do own that market a little bit.
At one time, they had 80% of the market, and now QuickBooks Online has taken over. And when you asked about what's the biggest thing I find, QuickBooks Online is marketed as you just turn it on and press a button and everything is great. And it's not. And it uses artificial intelligence, which is trying to help you, and it gets you, I describe it as the sorcerer's apprentice, like magic gone wild. That's what QuickBooks Online is. And I went to a landscaper years ago, and it said his bank had $243,000 in it. And he goes, that's not right. And I said, no kidding.
Yeah.
So with some training, well, first you have to clean it up. And I do the cleanup, and then I train it simply and say, what would you like to know? What's the thing you wish you knew when you're lying in bed at night? What's that thing you want to know? And we can set it up that way.
Yeah, so. It is. I'm one of those people that use it because that's what I need to do. And a lot of it has to do with like what I took over. Yes. That's all I learned because that's who I learned it from. And I'm sure that there's so much more. Do you just come into a company who maybe like the chamber, who has everything on their QuickBooks, things are working, but maybe wants to learn just a little bit more about QuickBooks to be better?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Because some people, they say it's working fine, but they might need some more support in getting their processes together. So, and QuickBooks is only as good as the least interested person putting in information. So any company is only as good as the least interested person. So you need to talk to everyone, and sometimes people want to do something well, but it's not set up in a way that's friendly, or they didn't understand, or they were trained once long ago by someone, and they've just perpetuated doing it that way, and it's not correct. So I do a lot of training and go in, and my purpose is to work myself out of a job. So, but the other thing that I've kind of morphed into is OneNote, which is part of my Microsoft 365. And OneNote is an electronic storage system. So you can take your important information that is in your C drive, your business, your server somewhere. It's in your emails. It's on your desk. It's a printed document. It's on a website. You have all these things that you've got knowledge in, but you can't find the knowledge. It's not really knowledge. It's just kind of information sitting out there. When you can put it into OneNote, it becomes knowledge that you could give to someone else. And an example of, especially with COVID and what's happening with baby boomers wanting to retire, they want to sell their business. Their business, first, you have to have clean numbers for 3 to 5 years of information, okay? So just that alone is a hurdle for them to get working on. Then a lot of small businesses think, oh, when I'm ready to sell, I'm just gonna put it up there and it'll sell. 70% of businesses are not sellable. In order to be sellable, your business has to be able to run for 6 months without the owner. That is a tall order. How do you run without the owner? How do you document what the owner does? You put it in OneNote. And OneNote has a search capability that you can find anything in 0.7 seconds. And that is the name of the company that I launched during COVID, called 0.7 seconds. And we have a training, we have training classes set up to set up your computer, train you, train your company, and then the processes that you put in place that somebody 30 years ago named it and they put it in the C drive and nobody knows what the name of it is and they can't find it. OneNote can search on every word in every document and find exactly what you're looking for like that.
Wow.
So if you start with QuickBooks, get your stuff cleaned up, then you go into your processes and then you document, then you have a sellable business instead of a hobby.
Right. And you made a key point. You got to find the right person in the business, and obviously we're talking about if this is a multiple employee business, you got to find that person that is dedicated to that and keeping it straight and, and not enjoys numbers, but knows numbers. And, there is that person in your office and you trust, because these are your business numbers.
Yes. Yes. So I will oftentimes clean up companies and then they have me come in once a month, once a quarter. And I can see right away which person either didn't understand the training, just is resistant to training, another problem cropped up, as a result of how they're doing what they're doing. But I work on inventory systems a lot. To get organized. I had a client that was doing $250,000 adjustments every quarter.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and doing it for 15 years.
Oh my gosh.
So when I was done with that system, their first adjustment was $5,000. So that was a 93% improvement. And it can be done.
Right.
It can be done, but you have to understand how QuickBooks works, how it likes it. It doesn't like you to do something today and load it 3 weeks from now, or date it 4 weeks ago. It doesn't like that. It wants things in order, especially with inventory.
Right. Oh my gosh. So Margo, if someone's interested in your services, where could they find you?
So my company is CKM Services. If you go on the Find a Pro Advisor website, it's through Intuit, and you put in our zip code, or you can just look for me by name, and you'll see all my reviews. I think there's 27 5-star reviews there, so it's kind of fun. Actually, they can look for any kind of pro advisor. So whatever your specialty is, like if you're doing e-commerce, the Cleveland area has 5 of the top 100 pro advisors in Cleveland.
Wow.
So we do have quite a quite a level, quite a depth of pro advisors here in Cleveland, and they specialize in all sorts of different things. And some of them are accountants, but they don't do the kind of work I do. Like I'm the in the weeds cleanup person. And then once it's cleaned up, then you could have a business coach, or you could have rent a CFO help you make big decisions, but they can't do anything until they have real numbers that make sense.
And is that what Pro Advisors is? That you could go and search for any?
Yes.
Pro?
So Intuit certifies their pro advisors. So we have to take an exam every year. And if you go on the Intuit site and search either by zip code or by industry or by name, you will find a whole list of people and their reviews and what they're best at doing. So
That's awesome.
it isn't just me. So.
And are you taking new clients?
Yes,
Okay.
I am. So because they're always coming and going.
Right.
And also I do speaking engagements now. So I spoke at the QuickBooks conference in Salt Lake City last year. And that topic was 50% more profit in 4 weeks. Like if you do the work, it is possible to see the difference.
Right.
And then this year, the conference was rescheduled from June to September in Orlando, and I don't know that that's going to happen.
Right.
But I'm going to be speaking on OneNote at that conference. So
awesome. Well, thank you for sharing. It's such a needed thing in business. I mean, everybody needs this.
Everybody needs it.
So
the other thing I'll say about OneNote is it's not just for business, it's for personal. If you're running your kids and you've got all these medical documents and school documents and all this stuff, if you're planning a vacation, you can combine it all in one place. If you're managing your elders, your parents, you could have all their information, all their legal documents, all their care, all this stuff that's, whatever you have in a filing cabinet or piled up on your desk could be organized in OneNote and found in 0.7 seconds.
That's amazing. So everybody, make sure you give Margo a call and organize your business or your life, as we just learned. Thank you for joining us today. We appreciate you.
Very good to be here. Thanks, Molly.
Yeah, thank you. And we will talk to you soon.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, have a good one.
You too.
Bye.